Good morning, Winter Haven, and welcome to the State of the State, County, and City. My name is Katie Worthington Decker, President and CEO of the Greater Winter Haven Chamber of Commerce, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's event. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Our presenting sponsor is Bank of Central Florida, and they will also serve as our MCs for today's event. I'd also like to recognize our supporting sponsor, 610 LLC, for their continued investment in the Winter Haven community, in our downtown core, and always pushing us to take it to the next level. I'd also like to recognize Tampa Electric Company. They are an integral part of this event today, as well as the economic development of our community. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Joe Finari, Executive Vice President and Private Banking Executive with Bank of Central Florida, to give the official welcome to today's event after this short video.
There are those who dwell in the past and those who dream of the future. And then there are those who live in the present, who pull from their experience to challenge the status quo, who navigate the waters of "it's always been done this way," those who launch their ideas from imagination to reality. Your business lives in the present. You know where you want to go. We know how to get you there.
Everybody, good morning, Winter Haven. On behalf of all the employees of Bank of Central Florida, I just want to welcome you. It really would have been unimaginable for many of us to contemplate a year like 2020. Today, we come together to learn about the impact the pandemic has had on our state and local economy, but also how we have learned to adjust to make the best decisions for our families, our businesses, and our continued community growth. Before we jump into the economics, let me take a moment to share about the Bank of Central Florida. Our bank is a community bank that was founded almost 14 years ago here in Polk County, and we have a local board of directors. We strive to hire talented, entrepreneurial-minded folks, bankers that are knowledgeable about the local marketplace. And at Bank of Central Florida, we invest in digital technology so clients have the option of calling their banker personally or leveraging technology to manage their finances at their convenience. Our client-focused service model is our top priority. We believe that if we're helping you and helping your business succeed, then as a community, we are propelling forward together, as you saw in that brief commercial. It is now my pleasure to introduce our State of the State speaker, Dr. Jerry Parrish. Dr. Parrish is the Chief Economist and the Director of Research for the Florida Chamber Foundation. In that role, he is responsible for conducting in-depth analysis on the Florida economy and on solutions to help secure Florida's future. Dr. Parrish previously was the Chief Economist and Director of the Center for Competitive Florida at Florida Tax Watch. Prior to that position, he served as the Associate Director of the Center for Economic Forecasting and Analysis at Florida State University and has many years of experience in the private sector in management roles at international manufacturing companies. Dr. Parrish received his PhD in economics from Auburn University and currently serves as an adjunct in the Master's in Applied Economics program at Florida State University. Without further ado, let me welcome Dr. Parrish. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here today. I do want to share some slides. And all right, let's talk about the Florida economy. I do want to tell you, I just gave our economic forecast, our official economic forecast yesterday at our Economic Outlook and Job Solutions Summit. But let's talk a little bit about what I do up here. I work for the Florida Chamber Foundation. We're part of the Florida Chamber. All we do is research. My job literally is to look 2 to 30 years in the future, come up with solutions to issues Florida's having now and is going to have in the future. We literally hand those things downstairs to the Florida Chamber, who does the advocacy. They work with the legislators, making sure the right policies are passed. We also have a political arm, and their job is to go around the state and find the right people to run for statewide office. And those are the people that'll put Florida's long term in front of the short term. You know, the Florida Chamber is the only chamber in the country who has a full-time chief economist And here's why we do it. It's because of the data. It's an investment in the data, making sure everybody at the state level and the county level and city commissioners, local chambers, economic developers, anybody who is looking to improve Florida, that they have the right data. This is what we have, the floridascorecard.org. It's free to use. There's literally hundreds of thousands of pieces of data on this. You can see the little box at the top right that says view county data. You can view it for every single county in the state. The front page will show you, red and green is the color scheme. Green means we're going in the right direction. Red means we're not. We put up the COVID tiles earlier this year to show you what the direction is. The number of cases is never going to go down, but the average daily cases, and those kind of things, the number of days since we've got the first vaccine in Florida, all that stuff is available. It's also available at the county level. But the good news is unemployment rate's going down, and we're now down to 614,000 Floridians looking for work, but we're still down almost 420,000 jobs year over year. Consumer sentiment's coming up. That's good, but it takes a little more than that to recover. When we look at the number of COVID cases, I think what's important is really not the number, but how are our hospitals doing? So this is a statewide look about the number of people currently in the hospital with COVID. And you can see we had a peak back in July. We were able to handle that peak. We had another recent peak. I think January 14th will be the local peak here. But the number of people in the hospital is going down. And you're hearing a lot about, there's new variants and all that stuff. I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not going to comment on that. But, be assured that Florida is able to handle, what's going on. And as people get vaccinated, certainly these numbers will go down. Now, I get the question all the time, when's Florida's economy going to recover? I showed you that we're down in the number of jobs. But what's interesting is when you look at GDP by state, you see that Florida is actually the top 5 in the country year over year. In other words, business activity is continuing, although a lot of jobs have been lost. What's interesting is Florida has more high wage jobs now than they did last January. And that's been true since about June of this past year. Florida's been one of the leaders here. So the higher wage jobs typically associated with higher GDP industries, those have been pretty steady. But as you all know, a lot of it's been in our leisure and hospitality industry. But being in the top 5 with the only eastern state and the top eastern state and the top southeastern state, that really bodes well for Florida and talks about that we're going to have a better path to recover. Now here's what the jobs look like. From March or February to April, we lost 1.1 million jobs. We've gained a little more than 700,000 of those back. So I call those recovering the jobs we lost, not really job creation. Here's what it looks like on a month-to-month basis. You can see when we started opening back up in May and June, we had a couple of big bumps. The good news here is Florida is creating jobs every month for 8 months in a row. You may note that the U.S. actually lost jobs in December. So I think once again, Florida's bucking the trend. But here's what's going to show Florida's weakness here. Here's all industries broken out, what the percentage down is, what the number of jobs is. It's ordered on the number of jobs. You can see easily leisure and hospitality is over half of the job, or almost half of the jobs here. At 15.5%, that sounds like, well, okay, that's bad. But in food service, it's only 10.3. What's really taken the biggest hit are the hotels and the amusement parks and arcades. Those are down, in the 30s and 40%. And, I can guarantee you we're going to have a lot of hotel bankruptcies. We're going to have a lot of consolidation in that. You got to remember, most of these hotels are franchises. They're not owned by Marriott or Hilton or one of the others. They're a family that may own one hotel, may employ their entire family. They may own 2 or 3 or 4 hotels as a group. So these are the folks that are really hurting out there. But you can see the other categories. Look down there at the bottom. Financial activities is actually within 100 jobs of where we were last year. That was an interesting category because when you break this down, finance and insurance are actually up 11,100 jobs strong. But the other half of that, real estate rental and leasing, is a down 11,200 jobs. So that gives you a net of 100, minus 100 jobs. What I did yesterday in my economic forecast is I took every one of these categories and forecast what quarter they would return back to the December 19 level. And financial activities is already there. We just haven't gotten the data yet. So they'll be back in first quarter, manufacturing the second quarter, construction back the second quarter of this year. But, leisure and hospitality, let me be honest, is not going to come back this year. All those jobs aren't. We'll have a bump when people start feeling comfortable with traveling again. My guess is June or July, we're going to see a substantial ramp up as far as the number of people coming. And, we're dependent on those visitors from other states and other countries. Not all the international ones will come back this year. But, and I truly believe it's going to take us 2 years to recover all those leisure and hospitality jobs. So I have them at the Q1 of 2023 when we get all those jobs back. Now, I want to show you by county year over year. I'll show the region in a little bit bigger type for you folks like me who may be having a hard time seeing this. This is a heat map, though. I want you to see the darker areas have the highest percentage loss. That's shouldn't be a surprise. Orlando metro area, Miami-Dade, dependent on those international visitors. Remember, those folks stay longer, they spend more. And, they drop about $6 billion in state taxes every year and about $5.3 billion in local taxes, just those visitors from other states and other countries. Up in the Northwest area, the Florida Panhandle hasn't been hurt so bad as far as tourism. Main reason is most of that's drive-in traffic. People are driving in from Alabama, Georgia. Maybe they're flying their little private jet in, who knows from where. But anyway, the commercial traffic we get on airlines is the big number here. Now, let me show you your region. This is just a whole group of counties. No particular reason, just, the areas that I could show. This is the job change, so you can compare it against the counties around you. And literally the same map, just I cut out some of the counties and made it a little bigger type for you to see. But you can compare your region. Polk County is one of the better counties, absolutely here. Sumter County, Brevard, some of the others did really well on this. Interestingly enough, DeSoto County is one of the few counties that actually has more jobs than they did this time last year, and they're growing. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Another thing I'm looking at is the labor force. What happens when somebody drops out of the labor force is they're not counted as unemployed, because the number, the labor force is take the number of people working and the number of people of looking for jobs, and that, people looking that aren't working are unemployed. So it's those two numbers together take our labor force. Now, what happens if somebody drops out? You're not counted in the unemployment rate. And there's some pretty good sized numbers here. Florida's got 276,000 less people in the labor force than we did a year ago. And that's 2.6%, a little higher than the US percentage. And you can see some of those areas, especially those hit the hardest by tourism, but some other ones as well. And some rural counties have higher percentages than the state average here. Now, let me show you the map for the region, same map, just, you can see that Polk County is only down 0.2%. Now, let me tell you why this is important. We don't have numbers, good data on who this is in Florida. We have estimates nationwide. And what those estimates tell us is, in a lot of cases, these are folks that dropped out of the workforce when their kids had to go home from school. And in a lot of cases, it's females. So what that indicates to me is we may have a less diverse workforce than we did if more of these people are females like they are in the US. But it's also, something to look at when companies are recruiting, you're recruiting companies into the area. You got to think about, some of these counties are going to have people that are trained, have a trained workforce that used to have a job that may want to get back into the job. You also can think about something like this. I'm hoping a lot of these people are in school. maybe those that were in the hospitality industry realizes their probability of going back to work is lower than some other industries. Maybe they're getting some training, a certification. Maybe they're going to one of our great state colleges, one of our great universities out there. That's my hope here on what's happening. But certainly that's an issue when you've got 276,000 people that have disappeared from the workforce. I would suspect by this coming fall, if most kids are going back to school, a lot of these people will be coming back into the workforce. So, what I've said is depending on the industry, depending on where you are in the state of Florida, you're affected differently, but it's also substantially different if you're a big business or a small business. Here's the numbers, and I get this from this group at Harvard, Opportunity Insights Economic Tracker. You can see, depending on the category, the percentage of number of small businesses open. Florida's down by their estimates, about 30% of small businesses have gone out of business. They haven't reopened. Leisure and hospitality, obviously taking the biggest hit here. Some of the other categories like professional business services, that's an indicator of business activity, are down less. But typical thing happens. If you're a big business, you got access to capital, you can weather the storm better. If you're a small business and maybe more thinly funded, you may not be able to. And we talked about this. We released a report back at our Future of Florida Forum this fall. We got together with Florida's SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, and a group called the Haas Center at West Florida. They do economic analyses. I'm the chair of their Council of Economic Advisors over there, as how we all got involved in this. But we wrote a report, and what was interesting about the report was really two things. One, we finally quantified what percentage of net new job creation comes out of businesses of different sizes. And so we put a new tile on the scorecard, and it shows the percent of Florida's net new jobs created by businesses with less than 100 employees. And this is the 2019 number. Overall, over the past 5 years, the average has been 60%. 60% of all net new jobs created in the state of Florida come from small businesses, those size of less than 100 employees. The report also talked about, it surveyed businesses. We had nearly 5,000 responses. The responses were awesome. Basically said about 45.4% of businesses were just concerned about staying in business. They weren't thinking about long-term issues. They were literally trying to stay in business. You saw the numbers about how many, have already closed. This is a big issue because a lot of our small businesses are using up their savings. They may be spending their kids' college fund. This is a big loss of wealth for Floridians that we're, and plus it's going to hurt us on the job creation. So what I wanted to show you is, every county in the state of Florida. This is on the map, the percentage of private sector employment that comes from these exact small businesses that we're looking at, less than 100 employees. And you can see it's actually fairly low in Polk County compared to some of our rural counties. But you can see for the area, typically when bigger companies concentrate around the bigger cities, that's why you see the higher numbers of small businesses in the rural counties. But there's that 60% little graphic there. You can see that 20 to 49 size group out of this is really the ones that produce 17.4% of the jobs. That's a really sweet spot. Those are the ones that can be at the size where they're really poised to grow. Now, that's kind of the business side of this. One of the things we do here at the Chamber Foundation, and we do it all every day. We've got full-time people working on it as our prosperity project. This is really long-term economic development of communities, development of talent. And so one of the things we do every year, we just updated it because we got data that came out in December, is we make a poverty map by zip code for every single county in the state. And this is available, both this year and last year are all available for every county on the floridachamber.com website. And what you can see on the left, we have a tile under the quality of life pillar for your county that says there's 37,124 kids in poverty in Polk County. And that number's getting better. It's green, poverty rate under 18, 24.7, that improved as well. Our goal at the Florida Chamber Foundation through our Florida 2030 blueprint is to reduce child poverty to less than 10%. And so what we've asked our local chambers and businesses to do is in some cases, adopt a zip code, and we can help you develop that zip code, one that's near and dear to your heart. Maybe it's where you live, maybe it's where you work, maybe it's something that the chamber and its businesses want to concentrate on. Another tool we've made available is called the Florida Gap Map. And what it is a map that has, the under 18 poverty rates, numbers of kids. It also has every single public school in Florida that has a third grade reading score. And if you go to thefloridagapmap.org, you lay your mouse over a school, up will pop something like this. The school score, that means that much percentage of those kids, in this case, 34% of those kids in Laurel Elementary are reading at grade level. And this is third graders. And that means 108 kids are not reading at grade level. So you can see the schools in your neighborhood. One maybe you pass on the way to work between your house and we can help you get involved in this. The reason third grade reading scores are so important is third grade is where kids go from learning to read to reading to learn. So if we can get them up to the level where they need to be by third grade, their path through school and their path through life becomes suddenly much, much improved. Now, I do want to talk about the future. One of the things we take a look at is the future population forecast. The Florida Chamber thinks that as early as 2030, we may have 4 million more Floridians. And, I like to show this map. The data comes from University of Florida's Bureau of Economic and Business Research. And this is where Florida's next 4 million people are going to go. And you can see you can have as many as 161,000 more people in the county. That's not even in the top 10 as far as growth rates you can see. You see your neighbors to the east, Osceola County, have the absolute highest growth rate. And what's on the left, at the top numbers, more than a third of the growth was planned to be, was expected to be in the top 4 counties. The dense counties getting denser. The top 7 will get you almost half. The top 17 counties will get you 3/4 of the growth. And you guys are number 9. So that's a big number. But I'm going to tell you this number is going to change for a couple of reasons. One, this is a pre-COVID look. Another thing that's happened since they've produced this estimate is we've done a 2020 census. So you get a real census every 10 years. You get an estimate in the between years. So you really don't know. It's a good estimate. It's as good as you can do. But you really don't know how many people are living in your county. And I will guarantee you this thing will change. For that reason, we'll get a real count. And another thing is what's happening. I see it all over the state of Florida. We've got a lot of people moving. With the advent of COVID and people with technology being able to work from anywhere they want to, Florida has become a lot more attractive, and rural Florida has become very attractive, especially in the areas, you got a small town, you got a rural area. If you've got decent broadband where people can do their work from home, we're in a situation now, we got a lot of people at work can, only have to show up for a staff meeting once a month at their office. And so you can live in Atlanta or Minneapolis for that matter, and still live in Florida, fly up the night before your staff meeting, be there, see all the people, and then come home to a really great place to live. People are buying property. They're buying a lot of recreational property. They're planning on building houses all out in the country. One of the keys is obviously schools is a big deal if they've got school age kids, but more than that, it's broadband. Do we have it? The areas. So the small town Florida is going to win this. Rural Florida is going to win this. And I believe we'll see new population expectation maps. And, where you guys are situated, near to major metro areas where people could drive in. Who cares if you got to drive in a couple hours if you only have to be in the office once a week or once a month? It's going to open up a lot of opportunities for Florida. But that's what I wanted to talk about. I certainly wanted to leave time if there were any questions. I've made the slides available. Katie can send those to you, any of y'all that are interested. And plus, you can always contact me at the Florida Chamber Foundation if you got interest in other stuff or data But Katie, I'll turn it back over to you. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely, Dr. Parrish. Thank you so much for that update and some good news coming out of this past year that felt like it would never end. So it's good to see the good news. I do have a couple questions that have come in. One was related to job losses in the area. And prior to COVID hitting, as recent as January 2020, Polk County was rated as the most diverse economy in Florida. And so when you look at that job loss map, do you think the fact that we were positioned from having a very diverse economy helped in terms of stemming off some of the job loss?
It absolutely did. Take a look at some of the areas that were just so dependent on visitors. And you got to remember, when we talk about leisure and hospitality and tourism, they're two different things. Leisure and hospitality is everybody doing everything. Visitors and families, you take your family to a restaurant or go spend the night in a hotel or go to a theme park. That's, leisure and hospitality. But tourism is only people from other states and other countries. And the areas that got hit the worst, your neighbors to the northeast especially, were the ones that really were the most dependent on those, those visitors from other states and other countries. So they really took the pain of this. It's going to be long term. Like I said, I don't think we're going to have all our tourism jobs back for about 2 more years. And that assumes that people will get comfortable again. We'll get our snowbirds back. That's been devastating to some of the counties that aren't directly in the line of the international travels. Just the people from north and you look at Canadian visitation is down almost 99% year over year. When you look at second and third quarters of this year, international visitors are almost zero, where we typically have 14 million of those folks. So yes, it certainly has helped. And, the more you can do moving toward, more manufacturing and more of those high value jobs, the better off you're going to be.
And in the number related to employment in small business. So the fact that our number was a little bit lower than some of the other rural counties, does that factor in obviously institutional employment? So with Polk County Public Schools being a very large employer and having one of the largest school districts in the country and in the state, for those of us in the economic development world or those businesses that are on the phone, what can we do to help that number in terms of building an entrepreneurial culture?
That's a great question. And, what you're seeing in some communities around the state and even some of the larger businesses are opening up things like incubators and accelerators. I really look at it this way. Probably the best, one of the best solutions that when you're talking about all counties and all regions is, one of the things that can really strengthen the community is more people trained in trades and getting those people some business skills. Honestly, I tell my graduate students, I teach over here at the Masters in Applied Economics program at FSU, and I humble them when I tell them, I can hire 3 of them, and they make about $65,000 a year, by the way, once they get through this program. You're worth about $40,000 as an economics undergraduate, about 65, after you finish our program. It's very highly quantitatively oriented. I humble them by telling them I can hire 3 of them for what I can hire 1 electrician to come out to my house. And by the way, the electrician, I have to pay him drive time to come out. I live out in the country. So that guy's making more than all 3 of them put together. So, those skills are highly valued. And those people, that run successful businesses are some of the wealthiest people that you don't really know about. We have one here in town who, I like to fish. I like to go out to a local lake and fish. My local plumber / electrician business owner guy has a house in the Bahamas and a private plane. So when he wants to go fish, and that's the way it is. And we have to understand the way to wealth is probably starting your own business, not working for someone else. And I'm gonna tell you, there's there's 2 dentists and a chief economist in my neighborhood. The richest guy in the neighborhood owns an electrical contracting company. We're not even close. So, when we make people understand that's real economic development, helping people, get some skills. When we look at those poverty maps, the best way to get a bunch of people out of poverty is to get a bunch of people some training and get them into the job market that takes them and their kids out of poverty as well. So really just that blocking and tackling about getting people in training programs and expanding the training programs you have has as much benefit for your city and county as it does bringing in some small high-tech company. It really does. So, let's not forget about those folks when we're thinking about the economic development. It's always great to have some big thing in the newspaper, but the communities that are going to win this are the ones that really are going to take those business people. Maybe you're recently retired. If you can mentor some kid, and it doesn't even have to be an official program. It's something the chamber could start. Kid, find his way, make sure they stay out of trouble, help them understand what the job opportunities are out there for them, help them figure out where to get that training. We've got the best state college system in the entire country in this state of Florida. And there's plenty of opportunities. There's 371,000 open jobs right now that people just don't have the skills to get, or those things would be filled. That's economic development at its base level, and that's important.
Yes, that was perfectly said. I think economic development can have so many definitions, and later this group that's on the phone today and our chamber members will learn about the Prosperity Polk initiative that we will be launching, and in partnership with the Lakeland Chamber, because really what we can do to elevate everyone helps everyone in the community and the surrounding community. So just perfectly said, Dr. Parrish, and thank you so much for taking the time to be on the call this morning. And I think you teed it up perfectly as we go on to our county government and learning about what their priorities are for the coming year. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Parrish.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.